No, this is not a halfling lucky racial plus the lucky feat plus stacking of advantage. While that build is super powerful, it just reduces the probability of rolling a nat 1 to a very, very small number. No, I'm talking about removing the chance of rolling a nat 1 altogether. This build was made specifically for the 5.5e mod. It has the necessary changes to racials, class, subclass, and feats that allow this build to work. There are also three exceptions to the Never Nat One ability. Number 1, we cannot affect saving throws. Number 2, any check that targets the ability rather than the skill. Again, we cannot affect that roll. So if the check looks something like this, yeah, we can't affect those. And probably the biggest chink in our armor, animal handling. Yeah, I'm joking. I'll tell you why later. All right, let's go. So, race, we want to pick elf because elves actually get two racial skill proficiencies. They get perception and a choice between survival and insight. Pick survival because we are going to get insight from another source. Then, background. We want to select a background that gives us the skilled feat attached to it and also that the two skills attached to that background don't clash or overlap with any other skill that we're going to get from another source. The one background that does both of these things is the Chandothan Freebooter. It gives you proficiency in athletics and sleight of hand and has the skilled feat attached to it, which will give us an extra 3 skill proficiencies at level 1. I'll show you how to do that on console later on. For PC users, I'm not sure how it works with you guys, but I'm sure you'll work it out. You guys are smart. All right, for class, we want to go first level in Rogue. We want to select our skills to be Stealth, Insight, Intimidation, and Persuasion. You're going to put your expertise in Intimidation and Persuasion. And for ability scores, we want the spread to look something like this. And yes, that 13 in charisma does look odd, but we will fix that at a later point. Feel free to shuffle around the ability score numbers for strength, con, intelligence, and wisdom. This is just my preferred way to split those scores, but make this build your own. Shuffle them however you like to play. The 17 in dexterity and the 13 in charisma should probably stay as they are though. So when you wake up on the Nautiloid, the first thing you want to do is open up your action menu. So it should look something like this. Those funny little question marks are the skill picks that you need to do because you got the skilled feat attached to the Chandothan Freebooter background. This gives you 3 extra skill proficiencies. You want to select medicine, investigation, and acrobatics. And yes, that is a very specific set of choices because these three things does not clash with any other choices you need to make later on that will get you the other skill proficiencies. All right, so let's go through the leveling. Level 2, nothing much happens. And you're just gonna keep on going with Rogue. Level 3, you get to pick a subclass. We are going with Assassin because Assassin gets a feature later on that becomes one of the pillars of our build. At level 4, you get our first feat. You want to select Elven Accuracy. Elven Accuracy has been reworded for the 5.5e mod, and so it is very, very different from what it is in the TTRPG space. Because the BG3 engine can't handle Super Advantage. What is Super Advantage? Super Advantage is what the TTRPG has termed the ability to roll 3 dice instead of 2 dice when you have advantage. This is what Elven Accuracy normally does. Unfortunately, the BG3 engine can't do that, so they've reworded it like this. That's right. It says you can no longer critically fail on an attack as long as you have advantage on that attack. That is the first pillar of our build. That is very important. Now we need a source of advantage on demand that will apply for each and every one of our attacks. We are going to get to it. At level 5, you are going to go fight Auntie Ethel. You are going to beat Auntie Ethel and get her boon. Select dexterity. That's important. Alright, at level 6, we get our subclass feature by picking Assassin. We get roving aim. This is important. At level 3, every rogue gets steady aim. Steady aim gives you advantage but removes all of your movement. Roving aim does not remove movement, but it does give you advantage. This is advantage of demand. Think of this as reckless attacks but for rogue. Alright, so it's an on-demand advantage with no penalties. It does only work for a single attack though, so it is very specific for rogues and very specific for this build. This is the second pillar of our No Nat One build. And then we hit level 7. And yes, you're seeing that right. Reliable talent has been moved from a level 11 ability down to a level 7 ability. So for those who don't know, reliable talent is a rogue feature. That means for any skill you have proficiency in, any roll lower than a 10 becomes a 10. Therefore, for the first 11 skills that you already have, you can no longer critically fail on those 11 skills. That is the third pillar of our build. And yes, that's it. At level 7, so end of Act 1, the build is pretty much 80% done. So we have 11 out of the 18 skill proficiencies, and with reliable talent, we can no longer fail on any of those 11 skills. I've tried to make those 11 skills the most used in the game, so pretty much most of the skill checks that you encounter should be covered by those 11. We also have the combination of roving aim and elven accuracy, allowing us to never critically fail on our single attack. So again, that is the build essentially. The remaining 5 levels basically just builds on the build itself, fills in the rest of the skill proficiencies, and adds medium armor proficiency, shield proficiency, martial weapon proficiency, the ability to cast spells, and the ability to use scrolls. If you want to go, have fun with it, experiment with yourself, you have my blessings. Go, have fun. If you do have other questions though, like how do I fill in the rest of the proficiency skills? Does this work with multi-attack? I will be answering those questions for you, but so yeah, feel free to stay. All right. Hello for those people who have stayed. Okay. So, firstly, we'll go through the entire leveling process and then I'll answer questions later on. Level 8, we want to take our last level in Rogue and get a second feat. We are going to take Actor, and this gives us a +1 into charisma, evening out that 13 into 14, and also giving us expertise in deception and performance. We now have expertise in all of the social skills. So yeah, we just in time to do all of the hard work in Act 2 with all of the Thorm family. You know what I'm talking about. And now, level 9, we go our first multiclass. Well, first and only multiclass. We are going to add a class in the Illrigger class. This gives us medium armor proficiency, shield proficiency, and martial weapon proficiency. Yes, those are huge for our build. We get to now play with a lot of armor sets and shields and weapons that we could not use prior to getting this level. At level 10, we are going to go a second level into Illrigger. At this Second level, we get to pick two passives, an interdict boon and an ill-rigor combat mastery. For interdict boons, I chose Bedevil because if you saw my effective spell save DC video, you know I'm all about debuffs. And this is another one to add to that list. But feel free to pick a boon that more suits to your playstyle. For Ill Rigor Combat Mastery, you want to pick Unfettered. We are a ranged combatant, and this is kind of like a sharpshooter that allows us to shoot in melee without penalties because we want to gain advantage on all of our attacks, being able to shoot in melee and not having to worry about that causes us disadvantage is huge for us. Now, level 11, we get to pick our Ill Rigor subclass. We want to get Architect of Ruin. Now, my last video got created because I actually discovered a bug in the Architect of Ruin that allowed it to cast the Bloodbane rune at a super high level using only minimal resources. Look at that if you're interested. Now, because we are getting Ill Rigor and Architect of Ruin at level 11, character level 11, we'll have a split of Rogue 8, Ill Rigor 3. Um, that broken ability isn't as bad anymore. It's still a little bit iffy in terms of resource management, but at this level, you can gain the same power from a wizard who can upcast that spell for you. So yeah, it's not super broken. It's just a little bit broken. You don't have to use it if you are a purist and don't like to use any glitches in your builds, but it is there if you do. We also get, more importantly, the reason why I actually chose Architect of Ruin is the class skill proficiencies that it gets. It gets all four of the remaining intelligence skill proficiencies: religion, arcana, history, and nature, thus completing our skill proficiency requirements. We are now proficient in 17 out of the 18 skill proficiencies, again excluding animal handling because animal handling is easily bypassed by potions of animal speaking. For all intents and purposes, you can now no longer roll natural ones on any skill check created by the game. That, of course, excludes any skill check that targets the ability score. Any named skill check, I should probably be more specific. And then at level 12, oh, also at level 11, uh, Architect of Ruin is also classified as a wizard in terms of spell scroll usage. If you haven't, if you've seen my video about the changes the 5.5e mod does to BG3, you will know that spell scroll usage is a big thing in the 5.5e mod. Ill Rigor, Architect of Ruin allows your now magical rogue to utilize spell scrolls. This is a massive bump for us in terms of power. And yeah, that means you are now capable of using the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel and Arrow of Many Targets to do that broken combo that we've all seen before. And it is amazing. All right, so level 12, we are going to go fourth level into Ill Rigor. This will give us our third feat. I would select Piercer. While you don't get a lot of enemies that are resistant to piercing damage, because your damage output is so high and you are one of the main DPS, it should be one of the main DPS in your party. If you do encounter an enemy that has resistance to piercing damage, it is very much felt by the entire party. The fight goes on for a little bit too long than I'm comfortable with. So I would recommend Piercer. This also gives us a +1 to our dexterity. which then evens that out to from 19 to 20, allowing us to stop using the gloves of dexterity, which in the 5.5 mod doesn't increase your dex to 18. It just adds a plus 3. Um, and then allows us to use the Hell Dusk gloves, which gives us a plus 6 to all of our weapon attacks, which is a damage rider, which is great for us. All right. So, questions. Does this build work with multi attacks? Sadly, no. Roving aim will only work on a single weapon attack. It does not work for a second weapon attack. There is a way to make this build that allows for multiple attacks in a round. It is an Eldritch Blast version of the build. If anyone is interested, feel free to drop me a comment, and I guess that'll be the next video. If not, then I'll put it on the big pile of to-do list and get to it at a later point. It's essentially pretty much the same. You get the same amount of skill proficiencies, 17 out of the possible 18. You do have to play around with which skills you're choosing and character creation as opposed to what we did here, because it does change when and where you get those skills. So keep that in mind. And that's it. As previously stated, at level 7, the build is 80% done. The rest of the 5 levels just fills in the skill proficiencies, gives you medium armor proficiency, martial weapon proficiency, shield proficiency, and the ability to use spells and spell scrolls. That's it. If you want to, make it your own, or you say you love firearms, just shove gunslinger instead of illrigger. Uh, do with it what you will. But thanks for watching. And as Mo says,
Now scram! Before I get emotional!